A big good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us this week once again. It's week 10 and we are moving on to our next topic, topic 8, PNG Connect in a globalized world. I hope so far during the course of our discussion over the last 7 weeks, you've gained some insights into our foreign policy, PNG's foreign policy making, the challenges, difficulties that are associated with our foreign policy making, the studying of our foreign policy, our history, the political history of our country, all these different dynamics that are at play, and they do influence how we think and how we formulate our relationship with our partners in the region as well as outside of the region. So Mr. Ako will once again in this session talk about PNG Connect in a globalized world, which was a foreign policy catchphrase or approach put forward by Peter O'Neill and Rinbing Pato when they were in charge of the country. So without further delay, I'll hand over the virtual microphone to Mr. Ako to continue to enlighten us. Thank you, Mr. Ako.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre, and morning, Lolgata. We'll go straight into it. Let me share. Becoming an expert in this now. Okay, so our topic for today is PNG Connect in a globalized world. So from the outset, most parts of today's lecture will not have any reference material simply because most of the public documents pertaining to these undertakings are not available. But as self-proclaimed historians, we do have that knack for keeping history. So I've just done that. I kept official records of these engagements, which I will now enlighten you all today. However, Dr. Philip Mitner's PhD thesis will cover parts of Prime Minister Gates' attempts to recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state. What's on the screen is part of the opening statement of Foreign Minister Samuel Abal's ministerial statement on foreign policy, development and globalization, which he gave to Parliament on the 18th of March 2009. So from this, Foreign Minister Abal continues this statement by saying that previous foreign policy approaches have helped Papua New Guinea to protect and promote the security, development, and other achievements it currently enjoys. The challenge and the opportunity now is to build on what has been achieved. We should review where we are now and identify how best to approach the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The government's overall aim is to ensure that the basic approach towards foreign policy making recommends, as a result of the current review, to promote an updated, truly national approach towards Papua New Guinea's international relations. This will in turn have significant implications for the conduct of PNG's diplomacy, including recruitment and training, the structure, the management of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Immigration at home and abroad. The foreign policy review will lead to a systematic review of the costs and benefits of PNG's memberships and participation in international organizations, as well as representations abroad. It will also lead to an examination of our national record in regards to giving legal effect to the international agreements to which PNG is a party to, and to putting them into practice. Foreign policy can, for example, be an instrument for achieving the goals specified in the key documents which guides national planning and the allocation of budgetary resources, such as the MTDS, This includes promoting development and trade in resources, products, and commodities in which PNG enjoys a competitive advantage in the global market. Bilateral and multilateral diplomacy are not alternatives. They are complementary ways of promoting and protecting our national interest. It is vital that we continue to engage with issues and act as relevant to PNG's national interest and contribute in a purposeful way. In a challenging global environment, PNG must be more than selective. We should be proactive as occasion requires. Above all, we have to be purposeful in making decisions and acting to engage. This will require and help government to set priorities for the use of scarce diplomatic resources, both funds and personnel, and for seeking to influence other actors. These priorities must take full account of agency, impotence, and Papua New Guinea's capacity to make a real difference. A full commitment to purposeful and proactive engagement will provide a sound basis for working with other countries, international organizations, NGOs, and civil society with related interests. This means that our basis approach needs to evolve and adapt to the contemporary and emerging international environment. National sovereignty faces fresh challenges and offers fresh opportunities for cooperation with other countries with shared national interests. It is therefore important that we develop a strategy which recognizes and seeks to promote mutual respect and cooperation in meeting mutual responsibilities with neighboring countries. The strategy obviously applies to PNG's immediate geographic neighbors, Australia, Indonesia, the Solomon Islands, and the FSM. However, in a globalized world where distance and previous boundaries are shrinking, it is important that we define our neighborhood broadly enough to include other countries to which mutual interest in the principles of mutual respect and mutual responsibility also applies. This is why we need to regard broader, deeper, and more diverse participation in the Asia-Pacific cooperation and mutual respect and responsibility with neighboring countries, not only as complementary objectives, but as mutually reinforcing. So as I have previously suggested, government is not just a matter for political leaders and public servants. Needs and priorities are legitimate matters for public concern. Expertise can be found in other parts of the community, including the private sector and consulting with business. So in short, the foreign policy review we are conducting will have significant implications extending beyond policy itself to the management of PNG's foreign relations. Minister Abal continues, this is his address to Parliament. So he says, finally, Mr. Speaker, I am presenting this ministerial statement at a time when globalization presents both opportunities and challenges. It is therefore timely for us to review what we are and to see what we can build on relevant achievements since independence. And in doing so, we need to address many diverse, often complex issues which present yet further opportunities and challenges for us. So connecting through selective engagement, the picture you see is the first ever PNG Indonesia APEC consultations, which we undertook in Jakarta in December 2013. Just 2 months after Indonesia had successfully concluded its APEC 2013 host year. I sought the approval of Chief Secretary, the late Seman Supe, and who approved this consultation, and the others that would follow. So the PNG delegation was led by then Deputy Secretary Policy for DJAG, Mr. Jack Carrico, who went on to become the Secretary of the National Judicial Services. He's now left the government, I think, and he's in the private sector as of this year. So if you can see, there is also another ex-departmental head in there, also Mr. Stanis Sulhau, former Chief Migration Officer. I think he's standing fourth from left. Now, during this visit, we were received and hosted by Dr. Mati Natalegawa, the Foreign Minister of Indonesia. So see, this was how Indonesia viewed our APEC 2018 undertaking. And it was during this ensuing conversation we had with Dr. Mati, the Foreign Minister, that he asked Mr. Carrico to, and I quote, to convey to his good friend Rimbing and advise him that on the issue of PNG's membership to ASEAN, let's host APEC first, and then we can move from there. So this was Foreign Minister's Mati's message and talk in Pidgin. We could translate into Pidgin that, look, idea lo askim lo kamba member lo ASEAN lusim paste mimi host im APEC na beni mi look. So this policy approach aimed to concentrate PNG's diplomatic efforts at consolidating and seeking new economic opportunities. I don't know how the government intended to do so without a trade policy then, but some of the initiatives include the opening of new diplomatic missions in selected countries to expand economic relations, such as in Korea, Malaysia, and France. Honorary consulates were also set up in a number of important cities and countries, such as Hamburg in Germany, and Houston and Los Angeles in the US, and Ottawa in Canada. This was around the same period. PNG also increased its level of representation and participation in different commodities and economic organizations, such as the Lome arrangements in the ACP-EU configuration, and at the London-based community organizations, such as those belonging to cocoa and coffee. Also, during this period, a number of important bilateral development cooperation agreements, so DCAs and investment promotion and protection agreements, IPPAs, and double taxation agreements, DTAs, were also signed with the People's Republic of China, with the Republic of Korea, Malaysia, Germany, Israel, and others. My apologies. I have a bit of flu, so we'll get through this. So look north and west the Pacific. This was said Julius's new foreign policy initiative. So within the constant context of this strategy, Foreign Minister Genia in 1996 decided that the policy emphasis might have inadvertently sent mixed signals to our important development cooperation and historical linkage partners located throughout the world. So he introduced a practical strategy calling it reinforcing our core relations. This worked in parallel with the overall Look North and Work the Pacific strategy. So when Prime Minister Bill Skate came into power, he introduced his international relations strategy as constructive partnerships in Asia Pacific. This was never formally sanctioned by the cabinet. Prime Minister Skate's intentions was to emphasize mutuality of gains in trade, development cooperation, and social interactions on an equal basis with countries PNG engaged with. He then announced this strategy during the 53rd session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, sometimes in 98 or 99. However, no formal announcement of the strategy was made in Parliament by either himself or the Foreign Minister, then Roy Yaki. So this gave of confusion signals to our bilateral and multilateral partners. And this became evident when the government unilaterally and in a covert way attempted to abandon the One China policy in order to recognize Taiwan in return for unspecified promise of financial and development assistance. So what prompted the shift to Taiwan? The deal was a unilateral decision made by the Prime Minister, according to Bogari in 2010, in a document he authored on page 141. This unilateral decision was signed on the 5th of July, and it called for the abandonment of Papua New Guinea's long-standing One China policy, which holds that there is only one state called China and that Taiwan is a part of China. As a policy, China demanded that countries who seek diplomatic relations with China must break official relations with Taiwan and vice versa. So since 1976, the One China policy has framed the PNG's foreign policy in that region. This commitment to the One China policy has been reciprocated with close diplomatic relations and increased economic exchanges between the both countries. PNG also has also supported the policy at multilateral levels through the UN and the APEC processes while maintaining economic ties with Taiwan. China has been comfortable with these trilateral relations, particularly with Papua New Guinea's economic relationship with Taiwan. China's uh, China's accommodative stance placed PNG in an advantageous position. So in this case, PNG still benefits from Taiwan without establishing diplomatic relations or giving Taiwan diplomatic recognition. Prime Minister's case decision to give diplomatic recognition to Taiwan was a significant shift from the status quo. His actions caused significant controversy in international relations. Both Australia and China protested vigorously against Gates' formal link to Taiwan. According to Adcock 1999, Atkinson 2013, Harrison 1999, China viewed it as a serious mistake and an erroneous decision that constituted a serious infringement of China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Australian government warned Papua New Guinea against the diplomatic recognition of Taiwan, alleging that it was not in the interest of Australia or PNG, in that it could undermine regional stability. Prime Minister's case diplomatic recognition of Taiwan did not last. Sometimes later, the National Parliament elected Semekere Morata as the new Prime Minister on 14th of July 1999. A week after taking office, Morata repudiated Skate's recognition of Taiwan. He said that the standard procedures for opening diplomatic relations with other countries, which have applied since independence, were not correctly followed. He swiftly reversed the diplomatic recognition of Taiwan and reaffirmed the country's commitment to the long-standing One China policy, but also emphasized the continuing significance of trade ties with Taiwan, according to Hiang Bon, 1999. Prime Minister Morata made no statement to Parliament concerning PNG's international relations priorities, as he busied himself with domestic issues, paying little attention to international relations. This was evident by his reluctance to attend the Pacific Island Forum meetings, summits, and other international engagements requiring his personal attendance as PM. His frequent changes of ministers into the foreign affairs portfolio also made it difficult for any major efforts into relooking this general direction. Although Sir John Caputin did try to take the bull by the horn when he was foreign minister. The fluidity of PNG's foreign policy initiative, was this move necessary? After all, there was already a communique between PNG and the Chinese province of Taiwan, signed on the 22nd of May 1995, enabling PNG to have trade and commercial relations with Taiwan. So were there any other alternatives? Were there other motives involved in this move? These questions are essential to foreign policy analysis and highlights the distinctive nature of foreign policy in Papua New Guinea, judged against Western standards. So in truth, there is surprisingly little analysis of foreign policy in PNG, as we all know. Although foreign policy is a significant policy area, its analysis is still underrated. China and Taiwan's competition to gain recognition in the Pacific through checkbook diplomacy has raised concerns about instability in the region. Then, as both China and Taiwan have used untied loans and aid packages to win recognition at the expense of good governance reforms. So this practice is set to undermine attempts to improve government transparency and accountability in the Pacific region, though it became less of a problem it has become less of a problem in recent years. Now, Prime Minister Semeke Morata, his record and as Prime Minister are well known by experts have written about them. And in saying so, his main domestic challenge would come from the Papua New Guinea Defense Force. And this is another classical case of domestic policy which will shape foreign policy. That challenge, if you don't know, is the WeWork mutiny in 2001, I think. So domestic situations influence in international relations. See, Semakere took power at a time when the PNGDF were trying to implement their 1999 white paper. And this white paper called for reduction of the PNGDF size by about 18% to 4,307 personnel, with an additional reserve force of 112. He also suspended General Singirok due to protests by soldiers on unpaid allowances, including the burning down of the battalion headquarters and officers' mess at Moen Barracks during the 2015 independence anniversary. The Prime Minister foreshadowed a radical overhaul of the PNGDF and said he would ask the Secretary General of the Commonwealth for assistance in this. So following bilateral talks, it was announced that Australia would increase its support under the Development Cooperation Partnership from 8 million to 25 million Australian dollars and provide up to 30 defense advisors. The bulk of the financial assistance was to be a one-off payment to enable the PNGDF to pay entitlements owed to soldiers and meet other outstanding debts to cover the cost of downsizing. In November 2000, a Commonwealth Eminent Persons Group headed by Gerard Hensley, a former New Zealand Secretary of Defence, and included Major General Michael Jeffrey from Australia, arrived in Port Moresby to undertake yet another review of the PNGDF. Its report was presented to the government in January 2001 and made observations about structural imbalances, maintenance and supply deficiencies, financial and personal management, and discipline. One of its key recommendations, however, was a dramatic reduction in force size from the current 4,150 then to 1,900 within 6 months through a voluntary release scheme. Now, while the recommendations in cutting the size of the force were not new, there was one glitch. The rank and file were never consulted on the EPG's recommendations. So after Cabinet accepted the report in March 2001, rumors of imminent downsizing generated anger among the troops. At Murray Barracks, where there was already a large number of soldiers who had been made redundant, but were still awaiting redundancy payments, a group of soldiers mobilized and called on the government to resign. There were also reports of soldiers breaking into the armory. Soldiers also called for the removal of all Australian military advisors in reaction to Australia's offer to underwrite the cost of downsizing exercise. This dispute was resolved fairly quickly, but only after the government agreed to resign Cabinet's decision to reduce the force size, although in fact the force numbers continue to decline. Following this incident, yet another PNGDF review conducted by the Department of Defense was completed in mid-2001. This review, entitled Defense Organizational Restructure 2001, largely endorsed the earlier proposals to achieve a small, balanced, mobile, and effective force and a decentralized operational command structure. So under the proposed structure, under the proposed arrangement, an elite rapid response joint task force headquarters was to be set up, headed by a second brigadier general, to command forces in operations and conduct low-level operations, but without its own force. It also recommended for defense policy and resource control roles to be separated from headquarters PNGDF and for reduction in force size. And mostly on the land elements, from 3,340, this was the number at June 2001, 3,340 to 2,000 over 3 years, and then build up again to 2,500 over a decade, and the financial powers to be decentralized to unit commanders. There was also claims of fraudulent deals and financial mismanagement within the Department of Defense. In representations to the newly appointed Defense Secretary John Wulupindi, soldiers demanded a commission of inquiry into the affairs of the PNGDF and the department. Unfortunately, Wulupindi himself was replaced towards the end of 2001. This was the sixth change in this position since 1997. In the same period, there had also been 6 changes of Commander Defense Force, either substantive or acting, and 7 different ministers for defense. Subsequently, in 2001, Prime Minister Morata announced the allocation of an additional 35 million kina to fund phase one of the PNGDF's rebuilding program, particularly on redundancy payments and other outstanding entitlements due to military personnel. Sadly, the new initiatives identified in 1999, the 1999 white paper, appeared shelved. Then on Saturday, 9th March 2002, rogue elements of Charlie Company to the Second Royal Pacific Island Regiment struck in what would become known as the Wewak Mutiny. I have Ambassador Ilau's photograph up there because he had also become the newly appointed commander then. So his role was to quell this uprising. So the period 2003 to 2010, Max Raya, former Ambassador Raya, in his working paper also suggested on the educational qualifications, the type of training required, the career pathways of the Foreign Service officer, or whether or not the Foreign Service Act supported these improvements if and when they were instituted. The need for consolidated information system, how to cultivate relationship with our close neighbors, and the public perceptions and their public perceptions of Papua New Guinea. The issues of good governance, PNG's membership of international organizations, transnational crime treaties, series, ASEAN membership, the Pacific Plan that included the MSC and the PIA, and the consistency of the PNG foreign policy to the national constitution. So in June 2003, Ambassador Rai left for his diplomatic posting in Beijing, China, and I followed him a couple of weeks later in 2003. He would return in June 2007, and I would again follow him in December of that same year. You see, current official records in DFED show that between 2003 and 2009, nothing much was done to formally continue the foreign policy review exercise. I am just assuming that up to in that period, DFED didn't have the strategic and project management capacity to continue this exercise. And then you had global events continue to change and evolve, which required constant alignments and realignments. This is Ambassador Rai and myself. And this was during APEC 2014 in China. He was then the Director General of Trade of the Trade Division in the Department of Trade, and I was heading the APEC Secretariat then. The 2010 attempted review of the foreign policy. Then Secretary, the late Michael Mawe engaged Dr. Kwai and Mr. Igara to spearhead the review. The final 81-page report was completed on 6 January 2011 under the title of Our Road Ahead in Pursuit of Our National Vision and Objectives Through Strategic International Relations, 2011 to 2030. In this report, it proposed the following 10 strategic directions and initiatives. These were strengthening and broadening strategic bilateral, regional, and multilateral relations, promoting trade and investment in strategic areas, mobilizing support and resources for national development, manage current and emerging cross-cutting issues and challenges, promote national identity and self-esteem, assure effective standing arrangements for national emergencies, uphold and protect our national sovereignty, unity, and integrity, assure our national security and public safety, uphold and respect international law, including treaties and agreements, and finally, refocus and strengthen our foreign policy management and diplomatic representation. This report also had a one-page on how to translate this policy into actions and achievements. Just one page. Now, the disruptor, I call APEC 2018 as a disruptor because once arrangements, once it was said we were going to host, it disrupt the whole foreign policy works, as everyone scrambled to determine whether we were capable of hosting, and all those negative attitude that came up into this. So in 2011, in November 2011, during the political impasse, Prime Minister O'Neill attended the APEC leaders meeting in Waikiki, Hawaii. That was his first ever international engagement as the Prime Minister. And thereafter, he got cabinet to transfer all APEC responsibilities to the Department of PMNEC. And these responsibilities have remained there ever since. In 2012, our Department of Foreign Affairs undertook a series of workshops and seminars to put some perspective into reviewing the foreign policy as the APEC juggernaut slowly but surely started gaining momentum. On 18 July 2013, Foreign Minister Rimbing Pato delivered a foreign policy statement to Parliament. In that statement, he emphasized the need to grow PNG's connections in a globalized world, stressing the importance of strengthening institutional arrangements and rebuilding capacity to grow international connections. This statement also introduced a DFED's corporate plan 2014-2016, which would direct the department's core business and functions. See, unfortunately, despite the plan's attempts at outlining its performance indicators, it didn't provide the KRAs and the KPIs for all its activities, which could then be used to complement the indicators. Further, the plan was rightly high-level strategic management. It was high level, so that's strategic management. However, it didn't provide the avenue for its operationalization. That is project management now, meaning that a complete overhaul, restructure exercise of the whole organization and the insertion of appropriate players to manage and implement the activities that would achieve the prescribed objective. Now, from 2013 to currently, yes, we can use the word currently up until the time they endorse the new foreign policy. The PNG's foreign policy on APEC was done in 2020. But if you look at it in a broader sense, Papua New Guinea's foreign policy between the decade 2010 or 2011 all the way up to 2020 was APEC. That's the reason why the foreign policy on APEC was crafted, endorsed by cabinet, and it started guiding PNG's participation in APEC. In a nutshell, the goal was to facilitate PNG's progress towards its DSP 2030 vision of becoming a middle-income economy. And this was to be achieved by rebalancing PNG's economy through the APEC process. The driver was the roadmap. I think the roadmap is titled The Roadmap to Domesticate the Outcomes of the APEC 2018 Leaders ERACON Statement. And this was to be done by harmonizing PNG's commitment to becoming a modernized economy for trade. So this was actually what the PNG Connect in a globalized world looked like in that decade. I'll stop there, Mr. Aguirre, and maybe I'll stop sharing too, as it's recorded. Then we can discuss. We still have some minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ako. Thank you for sharing with us really good insight into what transpired over those years that you have identified all the way up till the current state of affairs or today. So any questions from our attendees, those of you in the Zoom meeting room, even those watching via Facebook, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to join in the discussion. So as you've seen based on our discussion, our only written foreign policy so far is the active and selective engagement foreign policy white paper that was written in around the 1980s, 1980, approved by Parliament in 1981, according to the document itself. I have a copy of the white paper. It was sent by Professor Wolfers. He gave me a copy, so I had to do a printout and then read through and have a look at the document itself. So it's the only written foreign policy white paper since independence. So if we are able to publish or write the one that is in the works now, it would be interesting to see how that will take us forward. Any questions, comments from those of you? Mr. Ako, I have a question just to kickstart the discussion. It's in regards to Indonesia. I saw the picture that you shared, and I was thinking while reading what Deputy Prime Minister Rosso and Minister Maru and our governor for Medang, their recent trip to Indonesia, and I was just thinking, over the years, why did we not, have a relationship similar like the one we have with Australia, with Indonesia? Indonesia is soon to be grouped into the top 10, top 10 economies of the world, and Indonesia is a growing industrialized country, and we have a lot to gain from them. But over the years, we've not really developed our relationship similar to, in comparison to Australia. So, what do you think, in light of the recent trip? Do you think we should pursue a much more closer relationship, and to especially in the areas of industrialization, the area of industrialization? They came back, and now the Medan governor is all fired up about industrialization. Is already assigned RD Tuna. There'll be a MOU soon this month between RD and the Medan provincial government and VIDAR for industrialization of the PMIZ to kickstart and led by RD. So do you think we should go down that path, further develop our relationship with Indonesia based on your experience in the APEC space and the conversations you've been having with the diplomats, Indonesian diplomats and leaders? What is your
Yes,
opinion?
it's a very interesting scenario. One that will require continuous nurturing by the PNG side. Because the reason why the Indonesian fully supported the PNG's hosting of APEC was simply because we had set up that network and relations with the Indonesian APEC officials. And they were all for PNG support on that. But then throughout the years, I've observed, it's my personal observation, I've observed that it depends on the bureaucrats on the other side. Because a couple of them, Pikni Bolami, some of the APEC officers I met with, they were Pikni Bolami, so we hit it off immediately. About we started talking about living in the barracks and all that. And they told me, we've got nothing to lose. Indonesia has got nothing to lose in the region in terms of diplomatic relations. If you want to enhance your diplomatic footprint in the region, the onus is upon your foreign departments and economic development departments to continuously follow this up with our people. In their case, they still consider, for those who don't know, the moment they see a black-skinned person, they know he's from Papua. Not Papua New Guinea. All they know about it, these are Papuans, the province. So continuous diplomatic engagements, connectivity must happen to enlighten at all levels. And we don't hear much of it, but just like how the Bougainville crisis affected all of us, that continuous insurgency in the province is affecting them to all. Manuk lo daya lo side blow. Na biro heavy or karim. So suppose one pla one play big boss ball got some play pikinini or relative bin dial or one emba block him. Emba block him. That's what all Magi been talking me. So that's why all talking. If you want it, you need to push for it. We don't have any interest in pushing any. We are okay, and like Mr. Edgar, like you rightly say, we've done our homework, and in a couple of years' time, we're going to become the 10th industrial country. You want to become part. You want to become like us? No, keep on pushing your angle. So. Regardless of the MOUs and the countries' MOUs have been signed, the onus is on us. We need to continuously push it. Like I was talking about the undertaking to continue to become a member of ASEAN. No, we thought for us to show them that we are committed, we could set up an ASEAN desk at the embassy or have a minister consular ASEAN to show the ASEAN economies there that we are serious. That's the reason why we're starting off with a minister consular here. And then start dealing directly with the ASEAN countries. In that way, must show commitment. Now it's in human nature. The person who has plenty will not go after the person who has nothing to keep on pushing. No. It's the person who has nothing who must push, continue to nurture the friendship and all that. So that's from my personal experience. But this was from about 7 years ago and onwards. All my former colleagues, some would have retired in the village, staying in the villages now. Some are still working, but if that understanding of animosity against the skin color is there and bad, we need to continue nurturing, regardless of how many thousands of MOUs we sign.
Thank you, Mr. Ako. Matilda, do you have a question? I saw you coming on screen, so I'm asking. Anybody else with a question or comment for Mr. Ako?
Good morning, Mr. Yegera.
Morning. Thank you, Matilda.
And Mr. Ako. Mr. Ako, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question regarding the 2013 review. During my research, I interviewed some of my participants from DFA. They've mentioned that the 2013 review they did not complete the 2013 review. So I just want to ask, did they complete the review or not, from your experience or from your knowledge?
I don't think they completed it because they did call in, they did bring in the heads of missions from around the world to have consultations. And I'm pretty sure they, while there were draft reports and stuff, it did not gain traction with the minister, and then it was never brought to cabinet, I think, or even if it was brought to cabinet, it was never endorsed. Like I said, that review done in my presentation, the one in 2010 or 11, or maybe the 2013 one, they only had one page talking about how to operationalize it. It was supposed to be the other way around. 80 pages to operationalize and 2 pages as an overhead direction. But they had the bulk of the pages on high level and how low work came. It was only 1 pager. But it was a start. From that 1 pager, then you would have brought in skilled people to break up that 1 pager into a 1,000-page ops undertaking to happen. Because I'm not saying it was easy, but then their task would have been made easier by the fact that during the decade, a lot had been happening, and those would have been their markers. They would have set up their markers like the so-called ASEAN Century, the financial issues, and all those situations like what we have now. We have the Ukrainian, continuous Ukraine and Russia issue up there. Those are markers for us to start balancing our ideas. And then you have like what former High Commissioner Kiap mentioned that last week or a couple of weeks ago that it is not healthy to have to sign MOUs and agreements left, right, and center without a proper direction. And she has merit in what it is. She's coming. She was part of the eminent person group. So with that, we can assume that that would have been part of the report of the foreign policy review. That have a plan past them assigned. I mean, look. Imagine you have some political issues in the village, in the family, and one day come up na, mo line bureau of the family, and all of a sudden, bubu blik up the bubu, me go contribute finish lap. You'll be angry. Hey, well, we have some issues with them over the years, and how are you gonna help him more? Because bubu batok, because em poroman blomina, tuguna blem dai so me go help him. All those type of standing agreements and stuff. So reports were done in draft form. I can state that in 2017 there were another report under Acting Secretary Dim, but they did not go on to. But it's in one of our later lessons, which we will discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Ako.
Yes, thank you, Matilda, and thank you, Mr. Ako. We have about 12 minutes remaining. Any more questions or comments before we wind up our discussion and lecture for today? Mr. Ako, just a question. You talked about the downsizing of the military force. So I was thinking during that period in 2001, do you think the decision to downsize and restructure as per the Defense White Paper 1999, do you think it has any effect, ripple effect on what is currently happening today, the state of our security, nation security today, the national security environment today? Do you think that downsizing and that confusion during that period, did it affect what's happening, have any impact on what's happening currently?
It has, and it is compounded by the fact of by the fact that there's a lack of funding to pay out the waiting ex-servicemen. Some whose families have died, they're still occupying military houses. Why? Because they haven't got their payments yet until the military forcefully kicks them out. Then we see them in the papers that all waiting payment will lapun die. So those are some of the security issues. And if you go into the army barracks now, they are a far cry from the army barracks of the 1980s. Due to lack of housing, the number of housing, the single quotas have now been converted into merit quotas also. Look him. And those single quotas were based on company lines. So in place for single man or sleeper. So when the call outs came or what, they could actually mobilize quickly. But now you have the last time I made a trip there were families living in America in the single quarters, and all because there's lack of housing and funding. I don't know how the budgetary process plays around between the Defense Department and cabinet, government or the uniform, but then the bilateral partners are really taking advantage of the situation by providing assistance here, providing assistance there, and the more you provide assistance, the more you feel obliged. It provides obligation. So definitely there are ripple effects. And those ripple effects started when the TED General Gago Mamai became commander. That's when political influence started getting into the army appointments. Then it continued, and then the international relations stuff happened, and then that more mutiny thing that really shook Semeke Morata's government, because that was the biggest domestic issue that had a ripple effect in the region. Because once that happened, the the Australian and the New Zealand Army immediately tried to offer assistance, but Commander Ilau told them, no, I will handle this my way. And he did handle it really nicely. During some Q&A, we can tell stories about that. His biography is waiting to come out. So I think he's given me, I can ask him permission to just talk about some high level stories.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ako. We have roughly about 8 minutes remaining. Anybody else with that? Yeah, so the defense white paper in 1999, followed by the 2013 one. And currently there's one in the pipeline now. They're working on one, and the discussion started in 2018 or 2019, but they're yet to finalize the defense white paper. And the 2013 one was aligned to the national security policy. The students are familiar with the NSP 2013 because it was concurrently formulated with the defense white paper. So both of them were aligned with each other. But after that, we've not really done much in terms of policy and implementation. So that's a really major issue in public service.
At least the Defense Department has 3 white papers in the last 20 years. They made attempts to write it.
Yeah.
While the others have waited from 1982 up until 40 years to start talking about another one. So it's
That's interesting. It shows that we really need to seriously think about our policy making capability and do serious training on policy making, legislation, treaty drafting, and all that in order to really boost the capacity of our government departments in terms of policy formulation, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, all that. So we have about 6 minutes. Any questions, comments, those of you? All right, if we have no further comments or questions, we'll end here. We thank Mr. Ako once again for his valuable time and insight and for helping us to learn more about foreign policy each and every week. We'll continue again tonight with our discussion and around 7 p.m. tonight. So please make sure if you're free tonight, join us for the discussion. And the links have been shared. And we'll continue the discussion on our public service and life in China. Mr. Ako was about
good one. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, our viewers
Bye.
on Facebook, on YouTube, and those attendees in our Zoom meeting room. You all have a pleasant day, and thank you for your time. Bye for now.